not good deeds. You know, people say, oh, you did such a mitzvah, okay? And they mean like a good thing, a nice thing. No. The word mitzvah comes from the Hebrew word tzav. Okay, mitzvah, tzav is the root, the tzadik vav, which means, it's a military word. Okay, it's an order, it's a command, tzav, it's a command. When you get a tzav, you don't say, well, let's talk about it. Okay, if someone gives you a tzav, it's usually a military, it's not a discussion. It's a tzav, it's a command. And so the word mitzvah is a commandment, that which is a command. So the sense of Jewish understanding of law first comes from the text, the Torah, which speaks of 613 required obligations. Required obligations, that's the way we understand Torah. And over the course of 3,500 years from the time we received the Torah, however you want to understand that, and it really doesn't matter, there have been these 613 things. Now, some of them you can do today, and some of them you can't, because a lot of them require involvement with the temple, and we don't have the temple, so you can't do some of those commandments. But they are commandments. What's the first commandment of the Torah? The first commandment of the Torah, which I'm going to suggest, I think most of you have been involved in, some know in your lives. The first commandment of the Torah, number one commandment.
Honor your mother and father?
No, that comes in Exodus, the 10 commandments.
That's not first.
Okay, very good. Okay? Be fruitful and multiply. That's the first commandment. That's the first commandment. Okay, everybody okay with that commandment? We all participated? I hope. If you could. But that's the first commandment. You know, you think about these, it's an obligation. And by the way, if you help to make that commandment come true, it's as if you perform the commandment. What does that mean? If you've helped to make that commandment come true for somebody else. That's why we had so many shadchans. No, really. If you make a shidduch, if you're responsible for making a match, for the purpose of be fruitful and multiply, then it's as if you've performed that commandment. And that's why it was really the person who did that in shtetls in town was really, that was a major thing. The more she did of those, and I say she because invariably it was, the more she got like credit, you know, in the big book. Oh, another check mark for you, you know. It's that big book. So we're steeped in our commandments, 613 of them. And that's the laws. Now, given these laws, how do we adjudicate the laws? That becomes the other element. Okay? So we've got 613 rules. We've got a constitution, we've got the Bill of Rights, we've got all the laws, okay? Now, how do we know when someone breaks the laws? How do we punish someone who breaks the laws? How do we reward someone who adheres to the laws? Those are some of the issues that we have to start to deal with. And so here comes, and again, the whole process in Judaism of this justice system was a marvel for the time. You have to imagine that all of this that I'm going to begin to describe to you unfolded 3,500 years ago. All right, around 1300 to 1500 BCE. Okay, that's when these ideas started coming forth. These were new ideas. And however you want to understand, given whether a group of guys sat around a table and said, okay, I got a couple of ideas, let's come up with 613 rules, and let's put them into the story. Or some people believe it was divine. However you want to understand it, doesn't matter. For the time, it was revelation. It was absolutely a new way of seeing the world around you. And then within the scope of these 613 rules, in the book of Deuteronomy, which is the last of the 5 books, the last of the 5 books, in the book of Deuteronomy begins the discussion of how do we implement these rules? How do we actually do it? And it was very powerful. Now, for those of you who are, and I sense some of you know a little bit of Torah, the book of Deuteronomy is what? Devarim, but what is it? It's words, but it's
the legal system.
It's part of the legal system, but what's the president? Who speaks in the book of Devarim, in Deuteronomy? Who is the speaker, the primary speaker in Deuteronomy? Remember, Deuteronomy is the last of the 5 books. Moses, exactly right. God is not the speaker in the book of Deuteronomy. The book of Deuteronomy, the last of the 5 books, if you remember, they're ready to enter the promised land. You know that story? Okay? They finished, Passover's behind us. We've been through the desert 40 years. It's a whole new generation. Everybody who left Egypt, what happened to them? They're gone. So this is the next generation. And so what is Moses doing to this next generation? He's kind of doing a recap. Deuteronomy, the second time, the repetition. That's what the word Deuteronomy means. It's a repetition of the first 4 books in terms of the laws. And it's Moses standing on the plains of Moab, and basically telling them, okay, remember, that's why we have the 10 Commandments in Deuteronomy. We have it in the book of Exodus, which is at Mount Sinai and everything, but in the book of Deuteronomy, you have the 10 Commandments again, but it's not God giving the 10 Commandments. It's Moses saying, remember, you have to remember as if you were there. This is what God said. And of course, Moses makes one little edit. Okay? All right. He does one, no, not Zachor. He edits the word Zachor and he says Shomer. He makes one edit. He's allowed. Oh, I'm sorry. I just realized you're taping and I'm moving around.
Okay.
Are you okay?